What's good, everybody? It's Trollbot.exe and back with another video on Trollbot Studios. Today, we're doing the Conjuring Trilogy in a nutshell. The long-awaited sequel to the Annabelle Trilogy in a nutshell. In this video, I will be covering The Conjuring 2, and The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, aka The Conjuring 3. Now, let's begin. But first, unlike the Annabelle trilogy, the Conjuring trilogy follows a straight line. It goes from The Conjuring 1 to The Conjuring 2 to The Conjuring 3, aka The Devil Made Me Do It. This is unlike the Annabelle trilogy, which goes from Annabelle to Annabelle Creation to Annabelle Comes Home, even though Annabelle Creation comes first, if you catch my drift. Okay. We begin our story in 1971 with Roger and Carolyn Perrin, who move into a farmhouse in Harrisville, Rhode Island, with their 5 daughters, Andrea, Nancy, Christine, Cindy, and April, and their dog Sadie. The first signs of sus activity at this house are when the dog Sadie refuses to enter the house, and when the entrance to the cellar has been boarded up. That's a little sus. More sus events take place, leading to Carolyn contacting demonologists Ed and Lorraine Warren, who have recently investigated a possessed doll called Annabelle. Breaking point is probably when Sadie is found dead. That's probably when they contacted Ed and Lorraine Warren. Anyway, back to the Warrens. Lorraine, a clairvoyant, sees the dark forces that latched onto the Perrin family, and leaving the house won't really do anything. As mentioned a couple of seconds ago, the dark forces have already latched onto the family. No, not those forces, I mean spirits. Ugh. Research reveals the mastermind behind all this strange activity. The house once belonged to an accused witch called Bathsheba Sherman, who sacrificed her week-old baby to the devil at 3:07 in the morning. In case you didn't get it, Bathsheba is the mastermind. All the paranormal activity comes to a head when one morning, Bathsheba appears to Carolyn and fully possesses her. That night, Lorraine falls into the cellar where she sees the spirit of a woman who was possessed by Bathsheba long ago. Worse yet, Bathsheba had used the women to kill her own child. I think this was while she was possessed. So the Warrens decide to ask the Catholic Church for permission to do an exorcism, but due to the parents not being members of the church, the Warrens would have to get authority directly from the Vatican. Later, the Warrens' daughter, Judy, is attacked by Bathsheba in the Warrens' own home. The Perrin family take refuge at a motel, while Carolyn takes Christine and April back to the house to kill them. Note she is still being possessed. The Warren couple, along with a police officer named Brad, find Carolyn in the cellar trying to stab Christine. Lorraine warns them that if they try to take Carolyn out the house, Bathsheba will kill her. Carolyn is tied to a chair, and Ed attempts the exorcism himself. However, Carolyn escapes and attempts to kill April. Lorraine is able to call to her by reminding her of a special memory she shared with her family, allowing Ed to complete the exorcism and lift Bathsheba's curse. Back at the Warrens' house, Ed adds the haunted music box from the parents' home to their room of cursed artifacts. Now, let's go to The Conjuring 2. In 1976, 5 years after the events of The Conjuring 1, we find the Warrens investigating the Amityville murders, in which Ronald DeFeo Jr. killed his entire family on November 13th, 1974. The Warrens are trying to determine if a demonic presence was truly responsible for the murders and the subsequent haunting incident involving the Lutz family, aka the Amityville Horror, which technically means the Amityville Horror is canon to the Conjuring universe. During a seance, Lorraine is drawn into a vision where she relives the murders and encounters a demonic nun figure. She then witnesses a vision of Ed's death, frightening her. 1 year later, in London, the Hodgson family begins to experience strange occurrences in their home. These strange occurrences begin after Janet, the second oldest of 4 children, plays with the Ouija board. Janet starts to sleepwalk and converses in her dreams with an entity in the form of an elderly man. The elderly man insists that the house is his. Eventually, subsequent paranormal events terrify the family into seeking refuge with their neighbors. When the media attempts to interview the family, Janet is possessed by the elderly man, Bill Wilkins, who previously lived and died in the house. He died from a hemorrhage. As Janet shows more signs of demonic possession, the story eventually reaches the Warrens, and their assistance is requested to prove whether or not it's a hoax. Lorraine, fearful that her vision of Ed's death may happen, warns him not to get involved. She has another vision of the demonic nun in Ed's study. The demon says its name, which Lorraine scratches into her Bible in a trance. While at the house, Ed and Lorraine consult other paranormal investigators, including Maurice Gross and Anita Gregory. Anita presents video evidence of Janet wrecking the kitchen on purpose, thereby discrediting the haunting. Based on this, Ed and Lorraine decide to leave, believing that the family is lying. They discover that the spirit of Wilkins is only a pawn being manipulated by the true demon, the powerful nun, who is seeking to break Janet's will. Lorraine realizes that her abilities have been blocked by the nun, preventing her from grasping the truth of Janet's possession. Wow, that is gangsta. The Warrens quickly return to the Hodgson residence and find Janet possessed and the rest of the Hodgsons locked outside the house. Ed ventures inside alone and finds Janet at the window, preparing to commit suicide. He manages to grab Janet in time, but is close to falling. Lightning strikes the tree in the yard, turning it into the stump that impales Ed and Lorraine's vision. Speaking of Lorraine, she finds her Bible in her car, in which she wrote the demon's name, Valak. She addresses the demon by its name, successfully condemning it back to where it came from. Janet is freed from its possession, and Lorraine pulls her and Ed to safety. After safely returning home, Ed adds an item to his and Lorraine's collection, a haunted crooked man zoetrope owned by Peggy's youngest child, placing it beside April Parent's music box and the Annabelle doll. You know that I just covered, that was just the first 2 films. During this break, I urge you to like, subscribe, comment, and share this video. Tell your friends about Trollbot Studios and get them to subscribe too. Let's go for like 10 likes. Just Alright, back to our scheduled programming with The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. Boom. In 1981, demonologists Ed and Lorraine Warren document the exorcism of 8-year-old David Glatzel, attended by his family, his sister Debbie, her boyfriend Arnie Johnson, and father Gordon. Arnie's going to be important, as you're going to realize in just a minute. During the exorcism, Arnie invites the demon to enter his body instead of David's. Bruh. Well, he got his wish, and the demon transported itself from David to Arnie, while he suffers a heart attack and is taken to the hospital in an unconscious state. The following month, still at the hospital, how bad was that heart attack? Ed wakes up at the hospital and reveals to Lorraine that he witnessed the demon enter Arnie's body. She sends the police to the Glatzel household, warning them that the tragedy will occur there. Foreshadowing. Arnie and Debbie return to their apartment, and after feeling unwell, Arnie suddenly murders his landlord, Bruno Sauls. Arnie stabbed him 22 times due to his demonic possession. With the support of the Warrens, his case became the first American murder trial to claim demonic possession as a defense. The Warrens begin investigating into David's original possession. The Warrens later discover a satanic curse passed on through a witch's totem, and meet with Kastner. He was a former priest who dealt with the disciples of the Ram. He tells them that an occultist had intentionally left a totem, resulting in the creation of a curse on the Glatzels, causing David's possession. The Warrens travel to Danvers, Massachusetts to investigate the deaths of Katie Lincoln, who was also stabbed 22 times. Detectives have found a totem at the home of Katie's friend Jessica, who is missing. Lorraine has a vision to recreate the murder and discover that Jessica had stabbed Katie while possessed before jumping to her death off a cliff, allowing detectives to recover her body. Lorraine, in a vision, witnesses the occultist attempt to have Arnie kill himself, but stops her just in time. Lorraine is threatened by the occultist, and she tells Ed that the connection works both ways. The Warrens return to their house in Connecticut to investigate further, when they realize that the late Katie had attended nearby Fairfield University. They begin to assume that the occultist is operating in the area. Kastner revealed to Lorraine that he secretly raised a daughter named Isla in violation of the requirement of the clerical celibacy in the Catholic Church. As he researched the occult, Isla grew fascinated in it, later becoming the occultist. Kastner tells Lorraine that Isla's altar must be in the tunnels underneath the house. He leads her into them before Isla finds and kills Kastner. Ed soon arrives and finds his way into the tunnels. He is briefly bewitched by Isla and attempts to kill Lorraine, but she forces him to recall the time they first met, reminding him of their love. Ed regains his senses and destroys the altar, saving himself, Lorraine, and Arnie. Isla arrives at her broken altar only to be killed by the demon she has summoned, after failing to complete the curse. Ed places the cup from the altar in the artifact room, alongside the Valak painting and the Annabelle doll. Arnie is convicted of manslaughter, but ends up serving a sentence of only 5 years, marrying Debbie while in prison. Ed shows Lorraine a gazebo like the one in which they first kissed. Whew! And so is completed my longest video yet. I hope you liked it, and again, as I said before, like, subscribe, and comment down below. And hit that notification bell too so you don't miss any new videos. But in the meantime, later, fools!